What bumpiness?
All right. Good morning, everybody. And welcome to, if you can believe it already, class 5 of glowing color. And this week we're going to be going over starting a painting using an acrylic underpainting. I love to do like black and white or very limited colors just to establish a value structure design. And then I can, if I want to go over it with oils, then I can glaze into it with oils and really get a nice instantaneous glow that I oftentimes from there will actually build up some paint on top. And then if I want to, I can glaze again. So it's kind of an interesting concept, but it's a really fun way for you guys to see a little bit more about glazing quickly. That's actually how I came up with the idea for this. Doing an acrylic painting in class is because in a class or especially a workshop situation, it is impossible to teach about glazing because, you know, if you're doing a painting, it's never going to be dry enough. It needs to be really quite dry. So then I came up with the idea, well, what if I did an acrylic painting and then glazed into it? Because then I can glaze into it really quickly, especially if I'm just doing it as a demo. Loved it so much that it's actually become a part of a number of my paintings. So anyways, I'll show you that. And then we are, for part 2 of class, we are going to be working on using thick and juicy paint. So we kind of went with using thin washes and wiping away, and now we're building up our painting. And when we think of Monet and most of the Impressionists, we do think of thick, juicy, really exciting brushwork. But the truth is there's actually a lot of areas of thin and transparent paint in a lot of those paintings. So I personally am very attracted to paintings that have thick paint and thin paint, both. And you get a lot of nice movement and energy. I also like the cool colors and the warm colors, the dull colors and the bright colors. So all those things, Monet is pretty much, you know, one of the masters for sure. So we'll be looking at and sort of replicating one of his pictures. If you decide, you're more than welcome to do any Monet picture or any picture you like and just make it into a Monet style. I'll be doing, I think it's called On the Banks of the Seine River. Is that how you say it? Seine?
Seine.
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 I love your style.
I've even been there. I should be able to say it, but well, anyway, Seine River.
You ought to hear how I say Thames.
That's right, isn't it?
Times.
Oh, the times, yeah. Anyways, the Seine River. And we've got a lot of examples of his different paintings that he did on our Padlet page. So if you just go to the painting references section there, you'll see a whole bunch of different ones you can choose from. He's got darker ones, lighter ones, foggier ones, sunnier ones. So it's really up to you. I personally will probably just be kind of making up my own colors into it, using him as a like I do with everything, a jumping off point, kind of the inspiration. It's one of my very favorite paintings of his, or series of his paintings. So I've always thought it would be fun to have one. You know, I won't sell it or anything. It'll just be something for me. And so I'm excited about that. And I'm just grabbing something. We'll pop over to our Padlet really quick just to talk about, well, so for homework, this week is doing the thick, kind of more impressionistic Monet style, if you want to call it that, painting. Using the concentration is cool and warm color and dull and bright color. So by having the cool colors, that's what allows the warm colors to really feel warmer. If everything's warm, it doesn't feel nearly as bright and spotlit and glowing as if you have a lot of it really quite cool and make the warms special. The same thing can be said for dull colors, meaning like the grays and the more earthy colors compared to the more vibrant bright colors. So to make something special, you need the counter of it. To make it stand out, you need the opposite of it. So that's what we'll be playing up as well. Another thing that I'll be talking about when we're into the Impressionist thing is how many colors can I kind of hide within an area. So if I keep my values similar, but my colors much more varied. So my values the similar and my colors varied, but my temperatures also are going to stay somewhat similar in each area. And I'll talk about that when we get to it. You can really invite a lot of color into your shadow areas that a lot of people forget about. Oh, that was strangely explained, but I'll show you.
No, say that again. Say that again, please.
Okay, so when we think of the value structure, right, the lights and the darks of the painting. So if we're thinking like, well, let's just go look at a Monet picture really quick here. All right. Or we can look at a couple others. So I grabbed a couple other paintings that kind of reminded me of Monet, one by Hilary Scott, two by Laurie Signori. But if we get in here and we look at, which one? Let's look at this one. And we're thinking the value structure, meaning like here's the dark area, here's the light area, here's like the mid-value area. It's not going to let me zoom in, unfortunately. If you guys can kind of lean your heads in a little closer and look into, you'll see that like within this mid-value range, he's got reds, greens, blues, purples, and various colors of each of those. Within his lights, he's got blues, greens, yellows, oranges. And we can ask ourselves, like, well, how does that work? How is he able to, you know, within this tree over here with the light on it, it's got yellows, greens, reds, oranges. How does that not just fall apart and go crazy for us as viewers? Well, if you squint your eyes, all those colors merge. They all kind of blend together into a nice harmony. And that's because the values are very, very similar. He doesn't have lights and darks within these mids. He doesn't have lights and darks within the darks. It's just all dark. There could be slightly lighter, but it's not big jumps unless it's a sky hole, right? Over here in the lights, he has, everything stays pretty similar, especially up in the sky. So if we transition or took this and turned it into a black and white, or if you squint your eyes, it does the same thing. It simplifies the colors within each value structure. You can see that he's able to hide or use a whole lot of colors that makes it really exciting and vibrant within each value area. Does that make sense, Linda?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for letting me re-explain that. I know I was kind of odd the first time there.
No, it's just, I just missed a word. I was thinking too hard and I missed something you said. And also about the cool and the light, is it cool and light and dull and bright? Is that how you said that? The previous passage before this one?
Cool and warm.
Cool and warm, okay. Okay.
And dull and bright.
Dull and bright, cool and warm, okay.
Yeah, so he's got like, let's look again into these mids. All these colors are fairly dull, right? They're all muted down. And then you get over here into the light areas where the light is striking and they're getting much more interesting and vibrant and definitely lighter. So we're looking to our value structure. That's for me always my main thing. I love, you know, the lights and the darks and how that designs. Again, if you squint your eyes, you can see it much more clearly. Or if you're, you know, working on your computer, you can always turn it to a black and white. And then I'm looking to the I'm looking to my temperatures and to my vibrancy of color, and that hopefully they all hold together within each one of their areas. And you guys may want to look up a little bit better, higher quality pictures of Monet. There are some high resolution images of Monet online. So these aren't that great, but even with this bad reproduction here, you can really see that within this area, all the different colors You know, within the sky, all the different colors, within the shadow areas, all the different colors. And that's what makes Monet's paintings exciting. There's not just big dead areas. Great. And here is an example of the painting that I will be sort of doing next week. I'll find a better one, but I want to be doing backlit, soft and wispy. Works great for clouds, works great for trees. I've already got my image started. And it's also a replication of wanted to do a painting that I did quite small, larger. So basically where I'm at right now is I've got a very foggy background, and hopefully you can see that okay. And then I've added the cattails and the grasses over the top, but I just put them in really, really dark so that I'll come back in and build up the lights and the wispiness and everything else over the top. So basically I've got my background and I've got my dark value structure. So hopefully next week I will be able to show you about painting into that and really having a lot of fun and breaking up those big dark areas. And just like we were talking about, getting in and using temperature as well as the value structure to help those all read. I'll be able to bring in blues and purples and oranges and browns and greens and all these colors to make it interesting and not just like a big dark silhouette. All right, does that sound good for next week?
Is that, Michael, is that completely dry?
It is right now, yeah. Yeah, but I could do it if it was wet still. And I'll show you that today. We're doing with the Impressionists. I'm going to be painting wet into wet into wet into wet. Just really building up a painting quickly. So we have covered so many different ways to start a painting. I hope that this isn't too confusing for everybody. But what I'm giving you, I hope, are tools that you can use. And some of you will be doing it the same way every time. Some of you, I know, like Karen and Susan, I know a couple of you guys really like to play and experiment and try different things. So you'll learn what works best for you and best for your image too. So I actually start my paintings kind of depending on the painting that I'm working on and what I want it to end up looking like. I will actually, kind of analyze my references, think to the end. I like to start with the end in mind. Meaning, like, I sometimes will even start with imagining what does this painting look like hanging on the gallery wall, and what are the people saying about it? What kind of feeling are they getting from it? And then work my way backwards. Maybe I should even go one step further and have it hanging on somebody's wall after they bought it from the gallery, and why did they buy it? But it helps me to kind of think of all the stages as I work backwards from there. How do I capture that mood that I'm after? How do I capture that sense of whatever it is that's interesting to the person, and hopefully makes it so they have to buy it? I'll try to think like that with my paintings. Is I want to make paintings that people almost have to buy. Like, it's meant for a certain person. And when that person sees it, they're literally like, oh, I was just coming in to walk around the gallery today, but I have to buy this painting that I didn't know existed, 15 minutes ago. That's just a dream and a goal, but I like the idea of making paintings that are for somebody that's out there, and that hopefully they'll be attracted, they'll find each other. Anyways, starting with that goal in mind, working my way backwards will help me to decide what is the best way to start my painting. Is it the wipe away method? Is it, an intricate drawing, which some of them need, the more intricate ones, especially vineyards and stuff, because to make rows look mathematically correct and in perspective takes a lot of work on my part. So those ones get a lot more drawing and a lot more rendering in the beginning. My creeks and my, wild trees and stuff, a lot of those, I just go for it. I just wing it, and I love the wipe away method, and we're just going to go for it. So anyways, I'm going to jump up to the easel and
Michael,
yes.
Michael, I'm sorry, one more question. Do we have access to your lessons after this class?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, they'll all be recorded. And in fact, I included one of the past lessons. So I'm going to go back to screen share. In fact, I just added one video from a past class into the class recording section. This one is the whole class is, how do I do it? Yeah, you can just watch it from here. And if we zoom forward, I think it starts at like, yeah, has a whole entire section. In fact, that day I did two, if I'm just scrolling, fast forwarding through it. I do two underpaintings and the acrylics. So you guys can really kind of get a sense of it. So if today's demo isn't enough for you, you can go and watch that and get two more demos. This first one, a lot of the students did, sorry, where is it? This kind of nice, simple hill. We named it Bluebird Morning, I think, after we went in the next class and glazed into it, but we put some Queen Anne's lace in there and this nice little, oops, how'd it end up? Yeah, just kind of a nice little quick painting. So if anybody wants to, play with some of those, you're more than welcome. But I just thought, as opposed to me doing a whole class again with that I could just share a past video with you guys. So anyways, that is on our Padlet and you guys are more than welcome to see that. It just posted there. Great.
Hey, Michael, question.
Please.
I did a black and white like 4 classes ago. Boy, it was really difficult for me to cover it with paint. It got muddy. It was acrylic, the underpainting in black and white. And then I tried to go back in on oils and it just didn't look like yours. So what's your suggestion for somebody that can't seem to?
Did you glaze into it with oils?
No, I just put the paint on it, right on it, the oil paint. I didn't use a medium or anything. I just painted over it. Was I supposed to glaze?
No, you don't have to at all. I was going to ask because if you did want to glaze it, a number of the students put too many different colors into the glaze and then it becomes muddy.
Oh.
There we go. And yeah, if you use if you're glazing and you use, let's say, like an orange and a blue, you can very much get muddy because you're using the whole primary palette. You're making browns. So if you were glazing in, suggest keeping it simpler. All right, so with the acrylics, because they are runny, and we'll just run down this, I actually will put them into a plastic plate here. And I'm just gonna pretty much squeeze out black paint, and I've just got pretty cheap stuff here, and white paint. And the reference I'm going to do is basically just sunset over a field, but I'm not going to worry about the color right now. I'm just looking at the black and white. I hope I got white paint. I have to steal more of my daughter's white paint. This might have dried in the container. Important when using my acrylic paints, I will, as a general rule, hide all my oil paints, or as soon as I'm done, make sure I put all my acrylic paints away because I do not want them to mix as far as putting wet paint with wet paint. Squeezing out some of the black here. And I'm going to go ahead and mix some burnt umber with my black just because otherwise it ends up very cool. I also use different brushes when using, so I just grabbed a whole different set of brushes. I generally keep my acrylic brushes and my oil brushes separate. It seems like when I go back and forth between them that they really get damaged quickly. I went ahead and put a mid-value gray acrylic layer on there this morning. So that's pretty, I mean, it is dry to the touch. I just like to do that as opposed to having a white surface, and then I can just go to my darks and my lights really quickly. If that makes sense. And you'll see actually as I build it up here, basically what I'm doing is just making two different piles. I got my white and my dark, this is black mixed with a little bit of, well, actually quite a bit of burnt umber, just to warm up that black a little bit. Grab paper towels. So I use the same paper towels with my acrylics. Here is one of my secret weapons, is a mister bottle, and it's not a secret weapon. I actually learned it from watching acrylic painters, but it's much better than a spray bottle because it just releases such a nice fine mist. And I can keep my acrylics nice and wet just by every couple of minutes or whatever, every 5-10 minutes, putting just a little fine mist on top. Just keeps them going a lot longer. If I'm going to step away for a little while, let's say I've got to go let the cat out and reheat my tea, I will oftentimes take a paper towel, lay it across the top, and really mist it where the paint is. And now this paint will stay wet for quite a bit longer. Another thing that I've seen a lot of acrylic painters do is they'll actually spray a paper towel, put it down, and put the paint on top of that. And that will keep your paint dry, wet longer as well. I don't use acrylics very often and don't usually do any kind of finished painting with acrylics. So if any of you have been painting with acrylics for a while, you probably know a lot more what to do than I do.
Someone's at the front door. Someone's at the front door.
Someone will have to be ignored at the front door.
Is this a good exercise if you have a lot of trouble seeing values?
It is so great, in my opinion. I really enjoy it. I shouldn't build it up because, you know, might fall flat on my face each time I do it. But I really, really love the acrylics as value structure because you can build them up so quickly. They just dry so fast. You know, and that's what most people's complaint is about acrylics is, you know, they're, you know, nice and everything, but they just dry so fast. But when I'm doing my underpainting, I think that can be a huge benefit. So I'm just going to put in my horizon line. And I'm just sorry you guys can't see it very well. Maybe I could have put it up here. Maybe I can hold it up a little more. I'm just mixing up some kind of grays here so I get some value shifts. And I can just basically put in nice big shapes because I can very, very quickly with this paint come right back in and carve some of those shapes with my lights, which I'll do here in just a bit. So I'm just kind of looking for the big shapes of my big trees. Thank you. Let me grab a piece of tape here. And I'm just looking for big shapes. Pretty rough. I'm going to come in and I'm going to be using my paint to carve as well and establish my structure. Got my basically kind of a dot here where most of the lines are going to be leading in my field. So really quickly, just giving myself some lines there that I'll be able to follow and I'm actually going to grab some of the shop brushes. I think will be a little more interesting mark making, a little more organic. Sorry, I gotta move the camera. It's in the way of the brush drawer. Nice and big and messy to start with here. And Susan, you're asking about the colors being muddy.
Yeah.
Another thing that I will often do is I will lighten everything a little more than I think it should be. Because acrylics darken a little bit as they dry. Also, they if I am going to be glazing with oils over the top, whenever you're glazing, things get a little bit darker. No matter what, even if I'm glazing with yellow into it. What I really like about this way of painting, though, is it's almost just nice and big and messy, just like I do with my wiping away method, and the detail will come. Again, just like with my oil paintings, is I've just got to kind of trust that I will find the details and they'll start to work themselves out. As soon as I get my big shapes in, I can really start to focus and zero in on the smaller details, but it's always working from big shapes to smaller shapes. By having just a couple of those lines, I'm able to basically just kind of follow them along to make different tire tracks or rows of grass that are wheat or whatever this is, whatever these fields are. For me, they're mostly just going to be rows of texture. So working from dark to light, from big shapes to small shapes, just like I would with my oils. I'm just trying to get it covered. The nice thing too with the acrylic underpainting is I get a lot of different textures that I wouldn't get with my oils a lot of time. because I can put the paint on pretty thick and let it kind of, you know, dry. If I were doing this as a museum or a gallery quality painting, you want your acrylic underpainting to dry for at least 24 hours. And that's because it's not just drying, but it actually is curing. So to make the, you know, a real sturdy ground that the oil painting can be built on top of, you do really want to give it plenty of time to dry. When I'm doing just demos in class, I'm not as strict because, you know, I'm just showing you guys. And so I may glaze into this, you know, by the end of the class, but I think I'll probably let it dry until next week. And so if any of you guys want to do a black and white acrylic underpainting, then you have plenty of time to let that dry till next class as well.
What happens when it doesn't thoroughly dry?
I think that the oil paints would lock in the water moisture that's there, and then you're not going to get a really good bond to the surface. The oil paints, you know, are going to trap that water moisture, and it just doesn't grab like it should with the oil paint. So you really want to make sure all of that moisture is gone out of there. And that's just from me, you know, reading about it. I've never had any issues with oil paints not sticking, but I've also not been doing it for very long. They're only, you know, at most a year or two old. You know, when I'm unsure, I'll try to find literature and read about it. You know, there's definitely people who've been experimenting doing this technique longer than I have. And I will generally, what I don't want cracking, I don't want delamination, meaning where the painting just kind of comes off the underpaint. So you want it to have a really nice, good bond. Another thing that you want to think about if you're, you know, if this is a technique that you really like and want to keep working on, is you may want to start to find acrylics that are a little more matte. I think that the oils stick to those a little more. They have a little more texture. And then the other thing is that you do want to put some medium into any oils you put on top of acrylics, and which makes it a little more flexible. So if there is changing, like if they keep drying or whatever else, that the oil paints can flex and move a little bit with the drawing of the acrylics. There are some acrylic underpaintings with oils on top that have developed micro fractures, micro cracks. Again, I've not seen them, I've just read about them, but you know, just want you to be aware. If you paint
Michael,
your
can you show us the palette as you're mixing the colors before you put it on? And
What's
so how
that?
are you getting those various grays? Are you just going
mix
back?
black and white.
Okay. It just seems like I don't think I could do it.
Mike-
Oh, well, you know, where
Mike-
you want a little lighter, you just add a little more white to the paint. Where you want a
Mike-
little darker.
So you're
I-
not mixing up a bunch of gray in advance. You're just doing it as you're painting.
Right, yeah. And then I'll just kind of squint my eyes and go, okay, which area needs to even be a little lighter? Like, let's make this
Okay.
pattern coming down in the middle a little lighter.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. That's a great question.
Michael, there's somebody named David Jansen, Jansen, and
Okay.
his mother was a decorative painter. She painted heritage art, and
Okay.
he was her only child. And this guy became a paint chemist. He is a chemical engineer, and he has developed a line of paints that can actually. He gives you the basic pigment, and then you mix different mediums with it to make it oils, alkyds, watercolors, whatever you want.
Huh.
And his paints are absolutely, I love painting with them in acrylics, but the point is also, I listened to some art historians talk about paintings that had acrylic underpaintings. They didn't let them dry, and the painting was placed near a radiator wherever this painting was hung in a museum, and the paint actually just fell off the painting, the oil
Right,
painting.
yeah, that's
right
the-
off.
Yeah, that's the delaminating, yeah.
Yeah.
So you
So-
definitely do want to let it cure. Again, I've
Yes.
never had it delaminate for me. But my paintings are just not that old. They are, my acrylic underpaintings, I just haven't done long enough to test them long term. But it is a fun way to show glazing really quickly.
Michael, have you ever used the Gamblin Fast Mat?
Oh yeah, I use them a lot.
Okay, so how does that compare as far as drying time?
Truthfully, you can get them to dry in about a day as well.
Okay,
Yeah, I use when I'm traveling, I'll use the Fast Matte White because white gets mixed into everything, and it's the slowest drying color. And so I will use that because it just speeds up the drying time of all my colors.
good to know. I have a big tube of it and you scared me away from traveling and doing oil. So
Yeah, exactly. You could definitely take a couple, if you wanted to, you could invest in all the different colors of the Fast Matte. So here I am adding a little lighter, and I'm gonna take it almost all the way to white here with my background color. And now I can use this to carve in shapes in the trees and everything else, and make it so these big blobby shapes, I can make them appear like there's structure and detail. I love making it look like there's detail where there isn't. It's just, a couple big holes and spots like that.
Implied detail.
Implied detail, thank you.
A little off topic, but not quite. When you do the layers of gesso on the canvas before you start, you said 2 or 3 coats was a good idea. Do they have to completely dry in between the coats?
It's people suggest that they do, yeah. I will usually do the fastest I've like gessoed over the top is about 6 or 7 hours.
Okay.
But generally I let them dry for at least a day in between.
Not a half hour.
Yeah, it'll feel like it's dry, but it's not. There's still moisture inside of it. I don't know, like I would feel like they would keep drying, even through the layers because it's acrylic on top of acrylic. But I'm not positive.
Okay.
So if you've taken a painting, sanded it down, gessoed it, painted again, and it's still screwed up, can you do it another time, or is that the end of the canvas panel?
Can you say it again?
So you have a painting that you don't like and you sand it down, gesso it, do another painting on it, still feel like you don't like it. Can you sand it and gesso it again and do another painting, or is that the end of the panel?
The truth is you shouldn't really gesso on top of an oil painting. Because gesso is water based. What's that?
Even after you've sanded it off?
Yeah, unless you really sanded it off. Like all the way down to the wood.
Well, it's an ampersand panel, but I sanded it down pretty much, did a painting, so, okay.
Yeah, I would ask them possibly. I don't know the answer to that, really, sorry.
Okay.
But that's why I've been experimenting with that other product, the Bullseye product, because it can go on top of oils or acrylics supposedly. So yeah, I sand it way down and then I do a couple coats of that and then I gesso on top of that. So I have this
What
real
what is the
barrier.
bullseye stuff again?
Huh?
What is the name of it again? Bullseye what?
I think it's just bullseye 1, 2, 3, and then I'm looking for the primer that I'll see if I can find the information. Again, though, I'm experimenting with that a little bit. So I
Yeah.
feel a little bit gun shy telling you guys too much about it. I have, read about other artists who've been using it and stuff, but I hate to give advice that might be complete, not be the best.
Okay.
But it's a bullseye primer, basically.
All right. Thank you.
And it's nice, it dries fast, it actually makes a really nice surface. So you can see how I'm just using a shop brush. I should probably come through with a nicer, shaped brush. And see if I can't make some of these trees a little more interesting. This is after I get my first couple layers on there, it's another opportunity too to use some of these really beat up textural brushes. And I can really kind of come in and start making what looks like grasses and all the beautiful different textures you can get. What I've learned too in my skies, if I am really planning to come across it with oils and to glaze, a lot of times I don't put a cloud in there. I'll save it and make it nice and light. But you definitely could, if you wanted to paint some clouds in there. That's not a problem at all. But they will, when you glaze into them, if you are planning to glaze into them, they will they do get darker, and a lot of times if you're like wanting them to be warm, if you have a gray undercolor, they definitely can be a little bit difficult to the gray underpainting will change the warm color that you're putting on top. But you can come through, you can texturize, you can make this as detailed or as undetailed as you want. I could grab little tiny brushes and really start planning, making things much more delicate. The great thing too is I've put, dark down, then I put white down. And what I love, love, love about acrylics is I can come right back over the top of that and put darks down again. It just allows for so much, back and forth, going from dark to light, light to dark, really quickly. And I can really just keep changing shapes. I can, let's say, oops, you know what? I don't want this tree so high on the horizon line. It's got to come lower. It's closer to us. Oh, let's just bring it down.
This reference photo on the Padlet?
I don't know if it is. I can throw it on there. So you guys see why this would be kind of a fun and quick way to, and I've actually gone out plein air painting and done a number of these as well. And it's just a great skill for me to learn to see color as value, value as color. Also is freeing when I get out to plein air to just go, you know what, I'm not worried about the color. I am just looking for nice and interesting designs.
That spray bottle, that looks like maybe a salad dressing, vinegar and oil.
The ones I buy are often used by botanists for misting their plants.
Okay. Because I tried to find something like that at the art store. I didn't, there wasn't anything.
Okay,
I got it online.
yeah.
Oh, did
Amazon. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I just bought another one for my daughter. She's doing acrylic class in college.
do you just say misting bottle or?
Yep, exactly right. And I should have, well, hey, my daughter took it to school today. So I should have tried hers out to see if there's any one's better than the other. But I almost feel like even though they have different name brands, they all look exactly the same in the pictures. So I'm not sure, people are just putting their names on them, but it's one company making them. You may be able to get away with just buying whichever one's the cheapest one.
I bought a misting bottle and it was like a water hose. I,
Oh,
I
no.
wet, I wet my canvas so bad, it was crazy. I had to put it out in the sun.
Yeah, so maybe test it before.
Yeah, yeah.
You
I'm
know,
gonna-
Michael, Susie here.
Yep.
I think after watching you do this demo, that the reason I had trouble with that black and white, I'm just thinking back, is that I just didn't have enough values because first when you did the trees, I was panicking and thinking, oh my God, looks like the way I did it. How do you put color on that? But maybe that's what the problem is. You have to have lighter values to cover it in oils.
Yeah, I mean, but if you're painting it opaquely over the top, then it really doesn't matter. You're not going to see it. It's just like having
okay.
a drawing. That's why you don't have to make it very detailed. If it's just like a big fast drawing that you're doing, it could be the simplest, big basic abstract shapes. But sometimes I really go for it. In fact, I've been out in our local forest here. We have a beautiful park, forested park near my house. And I've been taking all these photos of the really intricate scenes that I would love to do just as black and whites, and just really trying to capture the chaos, but in black and white, of all the cast shadows and the limbs and everything else. I just find it so interesting. I think I'd be like doing a 5,000 piece puzzle, but you also can't, if nobody will know if I move a couple trees around or change some things. It's just a wild forest. So anyways, there's some paintings I would think I think I want to do some where I just literally do black and white acrylic paintings. I've been having so much fun with these underpaintings, and sometimes I ruin them by putting oils on them, I feel like, or make them less good. So I just kind of want to get brave and leave them. So I'm trying to push some of these trees back by just lightening their values a little bit, making them a little not as dark as these trees as they come forward. And hopefully that'll give us a little more feeling of perspective. Hopefully
Michael,
those trees feel like they fall back compared to these trees.
You said a magic word, puzzle. If you did a black and white painting and then had it made into a puzzle, do you know how many old people would be sitting at their big old coffee table putting that thing together?
How funny.
That would drive them crazy, and you could make some extra bucks.
Well, you know what? My website my print website just started offering puzzles. So you can make puzzles out of my paintings now for like $15.
Oh, well, hey, there you go.
Yep. And I got contacted by a company to sell some of my images as puzzles, but I don't know whatever happened. Maybe I just forgot to respond. I'm personally not a big puzzle guy, but my wife sure loves them.
I don't like puzzles either. I can't. I don't have time. I don't have time to sit that long.
Says the painter.
Right. I stand and I sit. The longest I sit is watching you paint in these classes.
So I don't really need to keep going too long with this. I'm having a great time. So I'm all of a sudden, just kind of mesmerized by, oh, what if the tree had this shape to it? Oh, what if it, by adding and subtracting. Hopefully you're having fun, but I will come back in right now, and I'm just going to scribble in some of my darks a little better here and just see if this gives me a little more structure to kind of some of this area here. So I've got my big nice pile of darks here, and I'm just gonna, very nice, almost like calligraphy, I hope, just nice and loose. I'm just gonna kind of dab in some darks. I did notice that I was holding my brush like this for a long time, right? I personally love to hold it like a baton or a magic wand here, and it allows for more interesting mark making. So I can just kind of very quickly hint at detail. And that's what I really find so fun with these black and white acrylic underpaintings, is how quickly you can just go back and forth. you can't really make too big of mistakes because, you know, you just paint over the top of it. Or you could wipe it away with your paper towel. It's a great way to experiment with just your brushes and what marks do the brushes want to make. What calligraphy is innately in there that maybe you're a little too scared to do with your oil paints. For those of you who have not painted with acrylics before, does this look like something that might be interesting to you? And the truth is, was that whoever asked earlier about you could do the same exact thing actually with oils and just literally let it dry. But with the acrylics, I sure like the speed in which I can just keep building up these values, keep messing with them. You just get in there and just mess stuff up and just, you know, all of a sudden it just kind of looks like grass, like texture, like, you know, wispy clouds, whatever it is. And I just am not thinking, you know, colors. I'm not thinking that. I'm just thinking values and shapes. And now, as I progress a little further into the painting, texture. So
Michael, this is Barbara.
Who is that?
I have a question for you.
Yep.
It's Barbara.
Barbara.
Okay, I can do values in black and white. I can really see that. But what I can't see or have difficulty seeing, I guess, is values in color.
Yes, and it is so difficult. You are absolutely not alone. That is something that I'm constantly revisiting and constantly trying to get better at. I think that is probably one of my weaknesses. And I think by doing things like this, because then when I come back in with my colors, I'm matching the values, you know, or trying to. And we'll talk about that a little bit. And when we get to the Monet style painting here in just a little bit. But yes, it is very, very difficult. One thing I will challenge myself to, but I'm always hesitant to do with the students because it can be, when I've done it in the past, you know, students will be kind of like, oh, kind of boring. But I will actually just do color matching, like grab the colors from like the hardware store, you know, the paint chips, or just a magazine and cut up different things, literally just try to match those colors. And, you know, that forces you in a way to match the values as well. So you're just kind of making, you know, a little brush stroke, and then you're asking yourself, well, okay, what's different? It's not red enough. It needs to be a little redder. Okay. Then you add a little more red to it. Okay, what's different now? Okay, it's the kind of the right color, but it's too light, or it's too dark, or it's too vibrant, or it's too muted. And so you just kind of have to just keep doing these little tiny tweaks. But I find when I'm separating my challenges out like that, I'm not actually just trying to make a refined finished image. I'm just trying to match little color splotches. It allows me to just focus on that one thing. I'm a big proponent, and again, I think it's just partly how my brain works, of breaking up different challenges and just focusing on, like right now, I'm just focusing on values. And then sometimes I can just focusing on color. Other times I'm just focusing on shapes. Other times I'm just focusing on design. Or I will say that that is by far my main goal in this painting, is all about, you know, if it was in this class, it would be color. It would be about, except for this painting, would be all about creating, you know, glowing colors or whatever it is. So that's one of the reasons I really enjoy teaching too, is because all of a sudden for 6-8 weeks, I'm focusing in again on design. I'm focusing in again on color. I'm focusing in again on brushwork. So yeah, good question. And I promise it is something that even the best painters I know are constantly working on. So I'm going to keep working on this or maybe another painting after class. So I just covered up my paints with a paper towel and I will just soak it. I could literally run it under a sink, but I'm just soaking it with my mister so that hopefully it'll stay nice and wet until class is over. All right. So what do you guys think of that here as I'm putting my paint away? Does that seem like something that might be interesting for some of you to experiment with this week?
Yeah, it's true.
It's
Yep.
beautiful.
And next week we will glaze into it a little bit. So I'll show you that.
Although I'll probably take the photo reference and make it a black and white.
Yeah, maybe I can turn it into a black and white for you before I can maybe send you both versions of it.
Sounds good.
This is
And I
a
like your comment about how it also gives texture underneath to your overpainting.
It really does give a nice texture to it. Sometimes in the wrong spots, like my white paint's actually really thick and there's a whole bunch of brush marks in there. But I'll well warn you, when you turn this into a black and white, that little yellow band that's right above the horizon, which our eyes read as really bright and vibrant, you know, yellow, actually is darker than this color above it. So if I did this as a black and white, it wouldn't read correctly, especially if I was planning to glaze into it. Because if I made this slightly darker right above these trees and made it gray, and then came in and glazed into it with warm colors, it's going to turn the gray, which is a little bit bluish, and I glaze into it with yellow, will turn greenish. So you do have to think ahead if you're planning to glaze into it at all. One of my favorite things to do is just glaze it with a transparent earth red, make it into all of a sudden it's just kind of a ochery, you know, well, just nice brown underpainting. Kind of ends up looking like this photo with just some browns in it and stuff. Yeah, kind of a sienna style. So that was the first one I was thinking about doing, but then I realized, well, wait, 2/3 of the thing is just big white sky. So changed my mind last minute. Lots of changing my minds on class today.
If you didn't want any texture at all, Michael, how do you get so that you don't look like you have any brush strokes?
Well, that mister bottle will really help. That allows you to really, that's actually what I saw the first time I saw anybody using the mister. It was if they really wanted really soft, fluffy clouds, they were misting it and then just using a really soft brush to brush it out. So yeah, you can keep misting your painting, keep working on it. So anyways, I'm going to stop the video and take a little break here. Get some more tea, and I'm going to clean up my acrylics so I don't accidentally get oil paints on them. And I'm going to switch over to the bigger canvas, and we're going to make Monet. I almost said make a mess, but it probably will be a nice messy Monet painting.
So it won't be a mess, not a
It'll
big
be
deal.
a big, happy, fun mess.
That's good.